Hello, everyone. I'm North Hempstead Town Supervisor Judy Bosworth. The Town Board and I are proud to present a very special At Home with North Hempstead program, celebrating the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., one of the most influential leaders of the 20th century. The role he played in the American Civil Rights Movement would forever change the face of history and alter the direction of this country. It's extraordinarily important that we follow the path that Dr. King paved for us. We must all find the courage to stand up and fight for human equality, dignity, and justice for all. While so much has been done, there is still much work left to do.
Reverend Edward Corley, and I'm 83 years of age, and I'm from the Mount Olive Baptist Church, 43 High Street, Manhasset, New York. Here, Manhasset Valley. I was born in Manhasset. Stayed here my entire life. It's amazing. I had a marvelous childhood, okay? We were not poor, we just didn't have any money. Most of the people in the community where I was born, we were all really impoverished financially, okay? Most of our mothers and fathers came from the South, the early 30s, and they came here and established a place to live and to work. And many of them were domestics, okay? So they had limited financial resources. But I remember as a youngster, as a little boy, really, I could not articulate the severity of the poverty of that time. I was so caught up, really. I come from a family of 10, 9 boys, 1 girl, okay? Unfortunately, we've lost 3 brothers, okay? So we still have 7 of us. There's 6 brothers and 1 sister still living. But my early days in Manhasset was filled with sports. Very early, it seemed that was the pastime of record that can somehow enjoy yourself, and the time would somehow you were able to move about during the course of the day, and the time would go away. All right, so as a youngster, I remember when I was a little boy at 10, 11 years of age, I had a shoe shine route, and I had a Newsday route. And that kept me busy. I was totally engaged in other things, okay? But sports was the major attraction growing up in this community. And that's why, and when Jim Brown came to this community, when he was about 13 years of age, he became the centerpiece, really, of this community for young people as it relates to sports. Now, we all went to a segregated school, the Manhasset Valley School, 100 plus African American, okay? After about 20, 25 years, the Valley School was integrated. I mean, it was not integrated. They closed the school. They closed the school, and it was a major step toward integrating us was when the community and the young people in the Valley Supreme Court decided that this was a segregated school, and so they closed it, and that we were forced to go to Plandone Road School, okay, and we became integrated at that school. This was now, I'm talking about that I was probably about 13, 14 years of age, Uh, this, I went to high school, Manhasset High School, 1950, because I graduated in 54. And so I went to middle school, which was Platinum Road Middle School, 7th and 8th. We're talking about probably at the latter part of the 40s, 45, 46, okay? And somewhere in that time, okay, it was a major event, really, because I remember that the NAACP, who really I think launched the suit, we marched from outside of this church. I was a little boy, I think I was about 16, 17. And we walked all the way to Manhasset, Plandon Road, okay? It was a memorable event that took place, and which was signified that we didn't have to go to school here segregated. Now we would be integrated into the Manhasset school system. I was so excited. I thought it was the greatest thing to be a part. I didn't know it's going to be historic at that time. I couldn't conceive that. But I thought it was fantastic to see the people of this community come together for a cause. As I said, I didn't understand the gravity of what was taking place, but wow, you talk excitement. There could be no other word. Yes, I was excited. We were happy, and then now we were able to. This new venture was going to really do something for this community, something bigger than what we would ever expect. I got to tell you, probably after high school, and I have to explain something. My high school years, matter of fact, my junior high and high school years was unique. Unique in this way, is that the white friends that I was able to meet and to fraternize with, who became my friends, and I say this without any reservation, I felt from junior high to after graduation, the white friends that I engaged myself with really were colorblind. I never experienced the fact that we were less fortunate than all of my white friends had no bearing on our personal relationships. They treated me from junior high to the end of graduation like a brother. That has kept. I have relationships with we celebrated 60 some odd years a reunion, and many of them have died, but my wife and I maintained a relationship with white friends of ours for over 65 years. We go out, we go to dinner. It's been a relationship built upon that attitude of brotherhood, genuine, authentic brotherhood. Now, I have, and it helped us. And so whatever was happening in the community, for me, it was able, that relationship that we developed seemed to neutralize whatever racism was taking place here. I personally felt I did not experience it. I got to be honest. Right. And I'm 83 years of age, and I'm happy to say that. And so I got friends. We have friends, white friends, and that's why. And it was very easy for me to start a black Jewish dialogue as pastor for 35, 40 years, because I had that base. Okay? So for me, over the years, even though I realized that there was some things happening, It did not define me, who I am. You know, I became very active in NAACP. Matter of fact, my wife and I, we are life members of the NAACP, and as a youngster, okay, because there were major things happening in Nassau County. As you probably know, that Nassau County has been tagged as the most racist county in the world. I don't know if you know that. Nassau County, with what was taking place. And so I would read and I would see and the violence and the kinds of things that happened in police brutality. And yeah, we knew it. Let's face it, the school districts in Nassau County are certainly disproportionate, and that we know that some of the schools the state has taken over because of the poor performance. And so, yeah, I began to realize as I read, especially as I got older, you know, and were involved with what was taking place, I could see a whole lot of things taking place. You got to remember something too. I'm an avid reader. I became a social studies teacher at South Senior High for 16 years. I went back to get a master's at Yeshiva University, so I became a certified social worker. So all of these things began to help to shape my understanding of what was taking place. Well, we understood, we saw some things, we read about the schools were being attacked. It was reported, many of the kids say that, you know, some of the teachers and the administration, and that I never checked it out to see if it was verifiable, you understand? But we heard a lot of things that seemed to impact, had a negative impact on the black community, on the psyche of the black community, and that there was a lot of things subtle and not so subtle. There was covert as well as overt racism that was existing, and it was hard to really pinpoint, but we knew it existed. Okay. One of the things that we really felt really tremendously about during those times is that that it appeared, based upon what we saw, what we read, and what we used as experience, that it was a double standard. There was a double standard with the police department. And that many times when the police came into the black community, they didn't come to resolve conflict. They came to stir up things and to really, and we just begin to believe that the police department, Nassau Police, was targeting young black men for whatever reason, that they would get them off the street to be, and it would become eventually a legal dumping ground, and that the black community felt powerless. Why would they do that? And so we tried to have dialogue from time to time with the police department, but that was a stigma. We just felt that if we could, as leaders within the community, we were going to have to do more. We was going to have to rise up and try to keep and teach our young black, especially our young black boys, young black men, how important it is not to get in trouble, because once you get a label, that's it. It's going to be with you for the rest of your life. So all of that was a part of. And in my sermons, in my preachment, and in my interaction with families, I tried to teach them how significant it was to avoid trouble. No. We realized early, matter of fact, we engaged one of the dialogue sessions we had. My wife who's here really brought up the question, because she says, you know what, we have two boys and they can't live in Great Neck. And so some of the white dialogue members, Jewish dialogue members, got very offended by my wife saying that. She says, that's true. They've tried to get places and they've been turned down. Okay? And so, no, there has always been a major, and that's the covert racism that exists, institutionalized racism that is that with it, really, they were redlining and all the kinds of things that was taking place, really. And so, yeah, it was subtle, but it was real. It was in Manhasset and in Great Neck. That took place, gentrification, urban, right here, right in Manhasset. Took all of these stores, because of their power, because of what they did, unfortunately. That exists right here in Manhasset and Great Neck. Sorry to say. They came up with suitcases of money and said, look, I'll buy your property. Yeah, what do you need? And so they came up, and it was like bribes, and took all of the properties. We are in a community that used to be African American, totally, and I'm not a racist. Everybody has to have a place to live. But I can show you a community in Spinney Hill, totally Asian, maybe 10% African American, when it was 100% 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Okay, I kept a low profile, as a pastor. I felt, in a sense, I didn't want to subject my people really to situations to where I would be in the news all the time. Some of my colleagues did, okay? But whenever there was any kind of a situation that we felt that we had to address, that's why I believe during the 60s, really, it was one, I mean, it was almost in the 70s really, when we started the Black-Jewish dialogue, because some of these things we would talk in our dialogue. What can the synagogue do, and what can our church, Mount Olive Baptist Church, do together to address some of those systemic problems within the black community? And we were able to, some things that came out of that. One of the things that came out of that relationship with Temple Bethel is the Temple Bethel started a Temple Bethel medical program, and I forget what it called, but they had about 50 or 60 doctors who were members of the synagogue who would treat some of the ailments of our members of our church and in the community for free. That was one way to address a health need, okay? There was some drugs were beginning to really manifest itself here in the 60s, the latter part of it. And so that our two congregations, again, addressed that issue. We had some major debates and that sort of thing. We felt that we made some inroads in that regard, okay? So those were two, the drug situation, the health situation. So we did some actual practical things that, in fact, that many people don't know, but we did it quietly. We didn't go around with a bell telling people. But whenever there was a need, and if there was some problems within my church, if somebody needed an attorney, whatever, again, Temple Bethel rose up to the situation. Whatever we can do, it became. And so much of what I understood as a child about white, intended, goodwill white people helping rising up, it was more than rhetoric. They actually came to the aid. We were not able to resolve all the problems, but at least we put a dent in some of the things. The Judaic Christian link. From the Bible, we believe that we are linked together on a journey together, and that we develop a tremendous respect, not tolerance, respect and love for each other's cultures, each other's religion, and that we found out that we were going the same path. You got to remember, it was three Jewish boys from the Great Neck community who went to Mississippi and lost their lives. And so we were very, from our inception, we believed we were linked. And no one can take away from that. And so it strengthened my bond and my understanding that there are people just like you who care for the same things you care for. And for the things you care for, you want your children to do, they care for. For me, this is my interview, and this is my path. He spoke at Temple Bethel. We were scheduled to go there, but he did. He came. You know, you got it. In all honesty, really, for me, I'm an honorary member, because they proven over and over again, and Martin knew that. Matter of fact, he was invited by people to Bethel to speak there. Okay, we missed out, but there was this bond, this understanding, and that Martin had a great appreciation for his Jewish brothers and sisters, because that the pathway to justice had to be a partnership. I just believe that some people are more activists than others, that they feel passionate to the extent that they're willing to lay down their lives. I mean, I've never been confronted in that situation, and I don't know what I would do, but I admire those martyrs within the black community and within the Jewish community who's willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for justice. The only person really that I shared a partnership with and a journey with is Al Sharpton. I've had Al to speak in my church at least 4 or 5 times for Men's Day and that sort of thing. And so we became friends over the years. And so when he would come, he would always get involved, would talk to us about what he was doing and what we ought to do as a member of the clergy and members of the body of faith, the kinds of things that we could not tolerate, we could not remain silent on. And so Al's probably another person who is a very close friend of mine over the years is Calvin Butts. I don't know if Calvin Butts is the president of SUNY, but he is a pastor of one of the largest churches in Manhattan. He is a major leader and one of our leaders in New York City. What made me become? I've always in my life had it in my heart that if I ever, as a youngster, I dreamed about, I'd love, because I would come to Sunday school and I was intrigued by what was taking place in the church body and people. And I said, gee whiz, I think I'd love to do that. And so I joined the church at 12 years of age. I've been a member of this church for 71 years. And I was always intrigued. Matter of fact, my wife talks about it. And when I was about 16 or 17, I was in charge of the youth of and she came from South Carolina and here, and she came to the church and she saw me. She said, that guy there, he talks too much. But anyway, but I was always involved in the church life since I was 12 years of age. Okay, and so I stayed around the pastor, the former pastor who's gone on to heaven, Reverend James C. Brown, and I felt really there was something beautiful whenever I entered worship and saw people, and so it became my passion, it became my goal that I've always wanted to be a teacher, I want to be a social worker, and I want to be a pastor, and I've been blessed to achieve all 3. First of all, I would like for them to become proud of their heritage, because you can't really engage yourself and other major events that's taking place unless you know who you are. That's one thing about Judaic Christian. We got to know who we are. We're children of God, and God intends for us to do the best, to not only do good, but to be good. And the civil rights, we want young people to know that. And there's something I think that helps to frame my understanding about civil rights is something Martin Luther King said. And he made a statement that he said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And if we can somehow teach our young people how important it is, don't waste your freedom. Don't waste your gifts. Use what you have to make a difference in the world. You don't want to leave here without making a difference and letting somebody else know how significant you are and how significant they are, regardless of race. Yes. Matter of fact, I believe, I don't brag because I believe it has to be a natural kind of relationship. It has to be something in your gut. You have the word chutzpah. You got to have the guts to be able to stand up for what's right, no matter what the consequences are. And for 43 years, almost 44, my church, from time to time, they says, Pastor, you've always been consistent. You've always stood for those things that were right, that was just, that was true. Good question, because I entertain hate in my own spirit because of knowing the history of the police. And I had to really, and so I always stood on the side of the victim. The black, especially black young men who were victimized by the police department and who were taken advantage of because of their authority. We've had many young men. Matter of fact, we have a young man right now, okay, who's incarcerated. We've hadn't had a lot, but who've been incarcerated, and we believe, and I believe, okay, that all of the situations that I found myself to understand what took place, all of them were denied due process, and that bothers me tremendously. I try to teach, I understand, and Obama said this yesterday, he says, you can teach people to hate, but you can also teach people to love. My congregation, I want people to love. I don't want them to hate. I don't want to start a Mount Olive Baptist Church race war. I can only respond to that. I can't recall any specific situations, but I've always believed, based upon what I read and what I see, that this inequity between black and white in Nassau County and so many different venues, really, the things that I've seen and witnessed, is that it appeared to me, and I'm saying it at this age, that most of the powers that be, especially those who could really change the racial landscape of this country and of this society, turn a deaf ear to the systemic needs of black and brown people and indigenous people as well. I just believe there is a white scar that permeates within our culture.
Thank you for joining us for this program. And let us all remain committed to carrying on Dr. King's work and legacy by creating a more just society.